If you ask people from the United States which retail chain is the most exciting right now, many would probably name this one. Aldi. The German brand is on a massive expansion drive. In the US, it is the fastest growing supermarket chain of all. I even made an entire video about it roughly a year ago. And worldwide, Aldi by now operates around 12,000 stores. These include locations across many European countries, as well as in Australia and even in China. And its success story shows no sign of slowing down. However, Aldi's success story isn't something that you can take for granted. There have been a few cases where the company failed very badly abroad. And one especially interesting case happened in Germany's neighboring country, Denmark. As early as 1977, the company Aldi Nord entered Denmark and became the country's first ever discount supermarket. However, it never achieved a real breakthrough there. From 2009 onwards, Aldi made losses every single year, and in 2022, the end finally came. The company withdrew completely from Denmark and sold its remaining stores to the Scandinavian rival Rema 1000, Rema 1000. After 45 years, this rather unsuccessful expansion story came to an end. Today, I'd like to take a closer look at this interesting case. Why did Aldi, that actually has a quite good instinct for expanding, fail in Germany's neighboring country, Denmark? And there's one thing I can already tell you. From the very start, Aldi and the Danes, this was not a healthy relationship. Well, let's find out more. Okay, here we are. Welcome to Denmark, the country where there's no Aldi anymore, but instead this right behind me, Rema 1000. It's a chain that's active in Norway and Denmark, and this chain bought most of the failed Aldi stores in 2022. But to understand why this actually happened, it helps to take a look at Aldi's expansion efforts in general first, because if we take a closer look at it, we will notice Denmark is actually not the only country where Aldi failed. In general, as mentioned earlier, Aldi is doing quite well abroad. It is important to know that the brand Aldi is run by two completely separate companies. Aldi Nord, which means Aldi North, and Aldi Süd, Aldi South. This goes back to a split in 1961 when the two brothers, Theo Albrecht and Karl Albrecht, decided to go their separate ways and divided the company between them. Today, Aldi Nord operates in 8 countries outside northern Germany, with a total of about 5,300 stores. In France, the Benelux countries, Poland, Portugal and Spain. In the United States, the company runs the brand Trader Joe's, while Aldi Süd operates its stores under the name Aldi itself. I explained that in more detail in my video back then. Aldi Süd, in addition to its stores in southern Germany, runs around 7,000 outlets in countries such as Switzerland, Hungary, Ireland, the United Kingdom, Australia, Italy and even China. In Austria and Slovenia, the company is also present, but there it operates under the name Hofer. And for a short time, Aldi Süd was also active in another country, Greece. However, this venture lasted only 2 years. Greece was the first and, apart from Denmark, so far the only country that the discount brand has completely withdrawn from. The reasons back then were varied. Among other things, Aldi was unable to find cheap plots of land, which made the discount model unprofitable from the very start. It also failed to meet customers' price expectations. Stores were often opened very close to the German competitor Lidl, but in terms of prices, Aldi was often beaten. There were also repeated problems with Aldi's management in Greece. On top of that, the retail market in the country was already extremely competitive. Aldi simply did not manage to make its concept work there. The result was that in 2010, after only 2 years, the venture came to an end, and the company has never returned to the Greek market since. In Denmark, Aldi's withdrawal happened a bit differently, and it also took much longer. After all, the company was active here for 45 years. In 1977, Aldi Nord opened its first store in the neighboring country, having already expanded into the Netherlands and Belgium. Unlike in those two countries, the market entry in Denmark was slightly different. Aldi could not simply take over existing stores, but had to build its business from scratch. But for this, Aldi relied on a tried and tested approach. The existing concept from Germany, Belgium and the Netherlands was applied to Denmark exactly as it was, and the stores hardly differed. Part of this approach was that Aldi carried out virtually no market research in Denmark. Competitors' stores were only roughly examined to get an idea of their product ranges. But this concept, which worked pretty well in Belgium and the Netherlands and of course in the home market in Germany, hit its limits here in Denmark. And just a few years after the launch, it became pretty clear this market is a pretty tough one. As early as 1981, Aldi faced its first setback. The local competitor Netto entered Denmark and quickly took over 20 stores in Copenhagen through acquisitions. In the following decades, Aldi never managed to become the market leader in the country. In 2003, competition increased further when the German rival Lidl announced it would also enter the Danish market. Aldi then sped up its store expansion program, but with little success. When Lidl finally opened stores in Denmark in 2005, Aldi experienced another drop in sales. From 2009 onwards, Aldi in Denmark made losses almost continuously. By 2014, the Danish competitor Netto had achieved a total revenue 5 times higher than Aldi's. Looking at individual stores, Netto reached nearly 3 times Aldi's average store turnover. And in 2022, the company finally conceded. After 45 years, Aldi left Denmark for good. The question why Aldi didn't work out here in Denmark is today part of an ongoing discussion. There are lots of theories about it, so many that even entire doctoral theses were written about it. One, for example, by a man called Christiansen. In the 2000s, he even served as managing director of the Aldi holding in Denmark, but left the company in 2006 in protest, which already suggests that not everything was running smoothly. And in 2017, so a few years before Aldi's final withdrawal from Denmark, he studied the internationalization of discount retail chains and, among other things, revisited the case of Aldi in Denmark in detail. Well, and if we take a look at his thesis, the failure of the German supermarket brand Aldi here in Denmark may not be that surprising anymore. Let's start with the basic problems Aldi brought to Denmark. I've already mentioned the concept that Christiansen calls maximum replication in his work. That means a company expands and is copied exactly in the new market as it is at home. Many signs suggest that Aldi simply did not adapt enough to the Danish market with this approach. When the managers carried out their small market analysis in competitor stores, they apparently concluded that the product range was not that different from Germany, so everything else could be done the same way. But they overlooked a number of subtle differences, and when these became obvious over time, conflicts repeatedly arose between the Danish management and the management in Germany. For example, the Danish management wanted to offer fresh milk and butter in the stores in Denmark. This demand did not exist in that way in Germany, so the management in Germany simply did not allow the Danish team to offer these products at Aldi. The result? The Danish competitor Netto overtook Aldi with this very concept and won over a significant number of its customers. These disagreements also extended to advertising. The Danish management preferred to distribute weekly flyers rather than relying on newspapers, but the German management repeatedly blocked this approach. In Danish competitor stores, it was also common to offer shopping baskets alongside trolleys for quick shopping. Again, the German management resisted because that was not the practice in other markets. But that was only part of the problems Aldi faced here in Denmark. Besides these practical reasons, the Danes obviously also didn't really connect with the image of the German discount chain, or should I say, they didn't really connect with the German mentality. There is this stereotype about us Germans that we insist on rules and order and want everything strictly controlled. And in a way, Aldi embodied exactly this stereotype in Denmark. In Hans Christiansen's dissertation, this mentality is described as German control culture. What does that mean? Well, for example, within the company Aldi, there is apparently a practice called honesty checks. German media also have reported on this in Germany, but I don't recall it ever sparking a major debate or public outcry in Germany. Basically, these tests target employees who are not fully trusted or suspected of stealing. They are tested without knowing it, and if they fail, they may be suspended. For example, the German newspaper Westfalenpost once reported that a supposed customer gave a voucher for returned plastic bottles to an employee claiming to have found it. The employee did not pass the voucher on to management, and this was considered misconduct. And a similar case happened in Denmark. In 2011, the Danish news outlet Politiken reported that Aldi allegedly sent a fake customer into a store who handed an employee a 100 krone note supposedly found on the floor. Because she apparently did not report it immediately, the employee was suspended shortly afterwards. And well, this company culture did not go down well at all in Denmark, and that also makes sense if you know a bit about the country. Denmark is, and we already learned that in my latest video about the Danish and German minorities, a society that relies heavily on trust. Citizens in Scandinavian countries are generally far more transparent to the state, but in return they also trust authorities and the government more and don't assume danger in like every situation. And when a German company then acts like a control freak, the reaction is exactly what you would expect. Danish media reported extensively on these cases, and the trade unions were quick to react. The Danish union Hårkår Handel Sydjylland said of the case, "I thought we have seen a lot already, but this tops everything." But, well, it didn't stop with these strange honesty tests. Aldi also kept running into problems in Denmark with its working conditions. The Danish news outlet Avisen apparently had Aldi firmly in its sights at the time, publishing one critical report after another. Among other things, the reports focused on the company's employment contracts, which reportedly included all sorts of unusual rules. For example, Aldi allegedly required its employees to relax during their vacation, claimed a right to be involved in compensation if they were injured in an accident, and even allowed the boss to search their cars after work. Other reports mentioned massive overtime that employees were forced to work. There were also repeated concerns about shortcomings in workplace safety. All of that went down very badly with the Danish public. From the very start, Aldi was viewed with suspicion. It was seen as a foreign company moving into Denmark by its own rules, and what caused even more resentment was that Aldi was not transparent at all. The company was also perceived as very secretive, Christiansen writes, which in turn encouraged rumors and speculation. When workplace conflicts were made public and discussed, Aldi remained very closed off, which did little for its image in Danish society. Over time, the trade unions also increased pressure on the retailer, trying to get it to cooperate and engage more. However, management apparently did not take this problem seriously. After all, we are under scrutiny in Germany too, said a former company manager who was not named. The conflicts were apparently seen as just one challenge among many. In 2012, however, the situation finally escalated, and even the Aldi management could no longer ignore the problem. That was the year when the Danes started to boycott the German supermarket chain. The Danes are, and we see that again and again, quite consistent when it comes to boycotts. We saw that recently during the clash with US President Donald Trump, who had threatened to annex Greenland, which belongs to Denmark. The results: Danes began boycotting US products on a large scale, and supermarkets even marked products specially on the shelves. And well, something similar happened to the German company Aldi Nord. According to a survey conducted in 2012 for Avisen by a market research company, about 1 in 7 Danes avoided Aldi because they disagreed with the way the company treated its employees. This, combined with all the other problems that had accumulated over time, seems to have affected sales as well. One thing, however, Aldi never tried during all this time: to change its concept or to adapt it to the Danish market. Obviously, the company was too convinced of its German success model. Well, until 2022. Aldi's final withdrawal benefited, among others, the German competitor Lidl, which even bought 4 Aldi stores. However, the main winner was the competitor Rema 1000, which is somewhat ironic. The chain from Trondheim, Norway, has in a way been inspired by Aldi and its concept. Here too, low-priced goods are offered on a minimalist sales floor. But there was one thing the chain got right from the very start. It understood the Scandinavian mentality, and it spoke the language of the Danes. Something that the German brand Aldi never managed to do in all those decades. Okay, back in the car, that's it. That was my story about the unusual failure of Aldi in Denmark. And if you liked it, if you learned something, then please leave a thumbs up. You can also hit the subscribe button and ring the bell so you won't miss any upcoming video. And if you'd like to support me and my work, you can also do that, for example, on Patreon. There's a link down in the description, or you can become a channel member on my YouTube channel. Then you will get new videos before everyone else, so you should check that out. But that's it for today. Have a safe journey and see you next time.